This is our activity 4.6 of chemistry. It's named How to Name and Draw Structural Formulas for the Hydrocarbons. Our team is membered by Edwin Rodriguez, Marcelo Rosiles, Jose Ponce, and Julieta Mes, and this is Organic Chemistry 101. Our main objective is to distinguish the type of hydrocarbons, the number one. The second, to be able to name the name of the different hydrocarbons following the UPAC rules. And the third one, to recognize the functional groups within a structure. The UPAC is the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. Their letters named the UPAC, and they serve to advance the worldwide aspects of the chemical sciences and to contribute to the application chemistry of the human mankind. Hydrocarbon is a compound that contains only the elements of carbon and hydrogen. It can be mixed poured with water, and they are also flammable. The carbon can only have 4 bonds, that in this case they are with all the hydrogens. Each one of the hydrogen complete a bond, but in this case they are 3 with hydrogen, and this one have the bond with the carbon, so it makes the 4 bonds, and also in this case. The hydrocarbons are divided in the 2 branches that are the aliphatic and the aromatic. The aliphatic are divided in 3. The alkanes, that are a compound that need to have at least 1 single bond. The alkenes, that at least need to have a double bond, and the alkenes that need to have at least a triple bond. And the aromatic are the ones that contain a benzene ring, and that's for me.
UPAC nomenclature for alkanes. The step 1 is to choose the correct ending, that is ane. To do so, you have to sort the bonds. Step 2 is to determine the longest chain, and you may circle it. This will be the chain with the longest number of carbons. Step 3 is number each carbon in the parent chain. If you have alkyl groups, start numbering the carbons by its approach to the alkyl group. The step 4 is to observe their branches. Cite the name alkyl substituent before the name of the parent hydrocarbon. The step 5, if you have some alkyl group and it has more than once as a branch on the parent structure, use a prefix. It can be D, tri, or tetra, and so on, before its name to indicate how many times it appears. Then, use the number of the carbon to which it is attached to indicate its position. Step 6 is when different alkyl groups are attached to the same parent structure, place their names in alphabetical order. Do not consider prefixes D, tri, and so on when determining alphabetical order. Step number 7 is to write the entire name, using hyphens to separate numbers and words, and commas to separate numbers.
The UPAC nomenclature for alkenes. Well, step number 1 is to choose the correct ending. In this case, is in. Then, to do so, you have to observe the bonds. It must be at least 1 double bond. Then, step 2 is to determine the longest carbon chain and circle it. And where a double or triple bond is present, choose the longest chain that includes this bond. Step number 3, number each carbon in the parent chain, starting by the carbon closest to the double bond and not to the alkyl group. Step number 4, observe the branches. Cite the name alkyl substituent before the name of the parent hydrocarbon. Step number 5, if the same alkyl group occurs more than once as a branch on the parent structure, use a prefix D, tri, tetra, and so on before its name to indicate how many times it appears. Then use the number of the carbon to which each is attached to indicate its position. Step number 6, when different alkyl groups are attached to the same parent structure, place their name in alphabetical order. Do not consider the prefixes when determining alphabetical order. And finally, step number 7 is to write the entire name, using hyphens to separate numbers from words and commands to separate numbers. You must mention the position of the double bond. In case you have more than one double bond, use the prefix before the parent chain name.
Naming alkenes and alkynes. Step 1. Name the main chain. Find the longest continuous chain of carbon containing the double or triple bond. The name of alkenes end with ene, and the name of alkynes end with yne. When there is more than one multiple bond, use numerical prefixes diene, diene, triene, triene, etc. Step number 2. Number the carbon atoms in the main chain. Begin at the end near the multiple bond. If the multiple bond is at the same distance from both ends, begin numbering at the end near the first branch point. Step number 3. Write the full name. Assign numbers to the branching substituents and list the substituents alphabetically. Indicate the position of the multiple bond and the chain by giving the number of the first multiple bond carbon. If more than one multiple bond is present, identify the position of each multiple bond and use the appropriate ending, diene, triene, tetraene, and so forth. Naming aromatic compounds. Step number 1. Find the longest continuous chain of carbon atoms. This longest chain may not be written in a straight line. Name the longest chain with the appropriate alkane name. Find the substituents and name each one of them with the appropriate group name. Step number 4. Number the carbon in the chain such that the lowest number is given to the group nearest one end of the chain. Step number 5. List the groups alphabetically in front of the longest chain name. Step number 6. Precede each group name with a prefix indicating how many of them are present in the molecule. In front of the prefix, list the number of the group in the molecule and separate the number with a hyphen.